Not freeze.
No, you're not frozen. You're functioning. Yeah. So I'm originally from northeast England in Yorkshire. I studied in Scotland, in Glasgow, and I lived there for about studied there for 3 years, and then I lived there for another about 3 or 4 years after I graduated, and then moved to the Hague back at the end of 2018, like the brink of 2019, escaping Brexit and other formidable situations that I wasn't that happy about. And I've been based in The Hague now for nearly 2 years, which is quite funny. It feels like quite fast, quite not that a long time, but now it feels like I've been here long enough, which is really nice. And yeah, I'm presenting a lovely show in the balcony vitrine. When you asked me to do a show at the time, I just finished quite a large project in the UK in Plymouth, a public artwork, and I was really tired after this public artwork and feeling quite exhausted, and also making a work during a pandemic was extremely hard and laborious and mostly consisted of emailing people rather than actually making anything, which is not really like my practice. So I think that when you asked me to do a show in vitrine space, I was quite excited, but also wanting to do something that required least amount of labour as possible. So I suppose that then presented the work, which is called What Do You Do and What Do You Do, which kind of navigates the different labours I have of being an artist, and also having working as a barista, working in horeca, doing the many different things that artists have to do to kind of stay afloat, and navigating the exhaustion of that. So presenting a show that was more investigating these things rather than presenting work felt way more interesting for me, and kind of like navigating my own care or my own tools to navigate these situations, which combine like building work, making work, trying to pay myself, trying to make sure that people are paid, having a job that mostly feeds into my art practice, which is not maybe deemed as an art practice, but how all these things layered kind of accumulate to be one big bulk and mash of like content. A big bowl of soup.
Soup and labor. And also you asked a lot of people to send you recipes of soup. How did that actually go?
Yeah, so I think when I was the initial like idea for the show, obviously it was within Corona limitations as well. So there was the idea of presenting these tools, which are kind of tools for catering for a large amount of people, and these sort of tools are on displays, like many chairs and a huge large soup bowl, and a sort of portable gas stand that you could put this soup container on. The idea that we couldn't actually have this kind of gathering. These props were almost indicators. I wanted to ask people to contribute these recipes of soup that could then metaphorically kind of gather all this information rather than being together, sort of how we can gather this archive of soups that other people can then connect with or make themselves. And I think soup is quite a nostalgic and comforting dish, because soup is quite a comforting dish that I have a lot of kind of like nice thoughts about. My mum cooking me soup when I was sick, and autumn kind of coming in, and the winter, and these warming recipes that really do kind of like put precedence on caring for yourself, especially at the moment. And then I suppose another layer on top of that was, I think at the time that while we were talking about the show, horeca was still open. We were kind of in this middle of 2 lockdowns. The summer, or the end of summer, which kind of we had some kind of summer was coming to an end. Then everything shut down again. So there's even more precedence on artists who normally do have kind of side jobs or jobs that prop up their practice or prop up their livelihoods, was even in more jeopardy now than before. And like also kind of in the same way that there's a lot of funding cuts for institutions, even how the balcony is at the same time. And you guys had just applied for Mondrian, and then that didn't work out. And then all these different precarities coming together and sort of thinking about how can we sort of sit down, take rest, and think about how we go forward now, and maybe we just need to look after ourselves a bit better and to be able to go forward. So yeah, it's like a kind of amalgamation of things, but the idea of inviting people to participate in that, I think it's important to hear other voices and have some kind of way of gathering all this information, whether it's conversations about care, conversations about labour, complaining about that your job's not paying you enough, or complaining that you're not getting paid at all. I think I was at the point to really just embrace all these different conversations and exchanges and recipes.
So yeah, we're hoping that the Mondrian Fund application will actually go through, because it's being reassessed. Because we got the green light from the committee, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
There was no funding for everyone. We didn't get the funding, but we actually got the positive review. So we hope that before the end of your show, ideally, we would have a positive review of the positive review.
Mm-hmm.
It would make a lot of sense for us, because it's very much related to your practice, like how labor is kind of negotiated also.
Yeah, I think
it's between horeca and how you kind of see both, as part of the practice now.
Yeah, I think I keep saying to people, I'm kind of, or the way I describe it is, I'm unfortunate in a way that I'm very bad or very good at bringing different elements of my life into my practice. I'm one of those people who can never really keep a hobby, because the hobby becomes something that I either want to make profitable, try and sell to people, or try for it to be some kind of way of sustaining my artistic practice. So working in horeca for many years, as many people do, I think how it's valued within society and how art is valued within society is these quite similarities, or there's a I feel like the precariousness in horeca and the precariousness in the arts, I really wanted to put a mirror up to each other and kind of create this void, like two mirrors. It's endless dialogue of value and how people value their own labor. So also the work that I create often seems to have function, or I feel I have to make work that provides some kind of function. And I think that for me is a way of justifying my practice, justifying the money I put into it. So whether it's a chair or whether it's a table, or whether it's a recipe, there is some kind of outcome there that provides a function, whether it's a tool for other people to use to help them. So even whether that be a physical tool like a chair or a table or a soup, or it become more of a guidance tool. So my work then kind of starts to go over to alternative education and trying to learn practices of care or unlearn the current practices. So there's always an end goal, that there is some kind of tool that comes out of it that other people can use. So someone asked me the other day, is an interview, is oh, if your studio's burning down, what's one piece of your own artwork you'd take? And I was well, there's actually nothing in here that's actually my artwork. It's all just books and posters and reference material. Every piece that I've made, or everything, not even piece, but every project I've worked on, the work is working in that space. Whether it's a stool or a table or a bar, that work that I've been involved in creating is working. So I just kind of have to leave it. I have this vision of all these different elements physically working together, but it's just the idea that I don't really hold on to work, because the end point of the work is to kind of have some of the function that people take, whether that's co-authorship or co-ownership of the work, I don't know, but it always ends up somewhere else, doing a job of some kind. Yeah, so maybe with this show, the end point of it, which is this collection of recipes that I've been kind of archiving and having these conversations with people who've been sending them in, and they've all been quite very kind of conversational recipes. It will be a book or a publication of some kind that people can then use to act as some kind of guidance for a caring practice, or a caring a way to navigate these uncaring situations we seem to continuously find ourselves in.
During Hoogtij, people are still invited to send their recipes.
You can also just message me or email me if you want to have a conversation about this. I think that's been like quite a key premises of this whole show. If I want to do something that I felt was the least amount of labour as possible, which in my own eyes, I can imagine I host, or I can host people in my space and I don't feel that exerts labour. It does exert some kind of labour, but in my own mental predicament, it was a way for me to navigate the labour of this exhibition in a caring way, which would have been nice to kind of host people within that. When we see the situation of Corona, I think even if I could just host conversations, that is still the promises of the show. And then the title as well, what do you do and what do you do, which is the email address and also the website. It kind of paraphrases or makes humour of the question that I often got asked. I think we all get asked this question, is like, what do you do? I'm an artist. No, but really, what do you do though? Like, is this different kind of like humorous questions that you kind of get sick of after a while? But it's still, I think everyone has a commonality of understanding those questions of what do you do and what do you really do and what does that mean, yeah.
The show you're doing is also pretty interesting towards the finger in many pies, like every pie. Of artists doing a lot of things, like being very multi-faced in terms of work. Here we have, personally, I have like at least 3 CVs so far, which are either professional, artistic, or blah, 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 kind of, you present yourself under like many different lights when it comes to context.
Yeah. We all have different identities within our own practices, whether that's being the artist, being the technician, being the caterer, so it's like we all have to be chameleons and present ourselves in different ways. But I think I was reading about the exhibition you're doing with the students. It was good practice for me to realise when I was graduating that you kind of have to do different things to really realise what you don't want to do as well. I think I said to myself just before doing this exhibition, I was like, I don't want to do exhibitions anymore because I didn't get anything. I was struggling to really feel the point of doing them, but I think I'm now learning to navigate exhibitions to my own extent. And as a practitioner, as an artist, navigate them my own way. And if that means not really doing a traditional show or showing something then leaving it for four weeks just to sit there, it means there has to be some kind of activity through the duration of it. I do seem to put more labour onto myself, but I get way more interesting outcomes. I feel like I have way more interesting conversations or outcomes or connections through that than just presenting work and seeing what happens. So I think the participatory aspect of it is really important for those reasons.
What's the last soup that you cooked?
Oh my god, I cooked a noodle soup a couple of nights ago and I accidentally put too much Szechuan pepper in it. me and my boyfriend were eating it and he sort of said, "Is your mouth gone numb?" And I was like, "Yes." And our mouth went numb. So it was a failure, which I did record, but I think there's been some quite interesting soup recipes we can bring in, like algae soup recipes, some serious chicken noodle soup, to some serious nice remedy soup styles of things. But also I think, it's really nice. There's been a lot of nice stories that go along with the soups and the occasions where they've been made and the reasons they've been made. Not only the sort of statements of like ingredients, like these different, I think these ingredients have overlapped into ingredients for how to care for each other, which has been really nice, especially at the moment. So yeah. But then we also had a really nice peanut soup as well, which was really good, and I'm going to make that again. And that was sent in by Vlada, who's part of a collective called Eat House in Rotterdam, a sort of artist collective who have been sort of cooking in residence. And I think a lot of artists have many people have turned to food and cooking during Corona to kind of have some kind of therapeutic aspect to keep them kind of sane. But it's interesting how many artists obviously do have horeca on the side, whether it's, you know, from dishwashing to barista to restaurants to all these kind of things, and how it feeds into each other. Yeah, I mean, it's funny as well, like being self-employed in the Netherlands, on my KVK statement, it's my kind of job roles as an artist is artist, an amateur educator or something, like educating amateurs, which I was a bit confused about, and event catering. So I was even thinking about presenting myself not only just as an artist to institutions, but like I can also cater for your events, and navigating it that way, which I think is quite an interesting way to do it. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll be able to use the tools in the window at some point actually on the street and really kind of have this idea of gathering outside collectively, looking at how we can be together when it's a bit more restricted. But I think it's also important to talk about the precariousness or the hopeful idea that you guys will also get funding, and how this exhibition has come at a time when, or like putting precedence on the precariousness and how long the balcony's been going on for, and how consistently you guys have been showing artists' work, and how long does it have to go on for before you guys are burnt out. And you know, like I think it's also about like sustainability of curational practice and what that means.
I mean, it's very general, but like when an initiative is like self-funded, in the end, it is that the ones that are supporting the costs at the end are the artists themselves more. Because, you know, like everyone has to come and install their work, and so that's just costs that are implied in doing a show, of course.
I think it's important to see where these sort of smaller spaces sit within like the art scene, which is there's large institutions that are still, you know, chugging away, but what are they providing? Like, what are they providing emerging? How are they providing emerging artist opportunities, or like how are they supporting? And does support necessarily need to be an exhibition, or can it be other things as well? But yeah, I think for me, actually coming into this with and being very transparent, and we've talked about a lot with there being no payment, no budget, it's actually been quite interesting for me to navigate it and how in a strange way, kind of almost like freeing, because I think when I'm making work in the context of being paid, it's like I have to navigate what exchange is there, how much work needs to be produced for that payment. And obviously you always want to do a good job, but then the idea of taking that out of the context has been, you know, it's not realistic and not sustainable. But it did force me to like think about not making anything, which I'm a maker, I'm a builder, I build stuff. So actually by not making anything and presenting work, which is more these kind of like these tools or these objects that were leaning towards an occasion which couldn't happen, or potentially could happen, or we could work it out somehow. It was a different way of approaching making work, and a different way of approaching or inviting people to be part of making work. Like I wanted originally to sort of bring people in and pay people to be able to talk to me, or pay people to, or this idea of presenting a meal as the exchange of labour, which couldn't really happen. Then it's interesting to see like how if people are contributing these recipes, you know, in 6 months' time I can turn around and be like, hey, here's the recipe book that you contributed to. This is, you know, a nice little thing I can give back. Artists from spaces do support this kind of growing artist community, and they're so crucial to actually there being an interesting art scene in these smaller cities. If they aren't there, there's no real reason, or you know, people will do things themselves, but there has to be a certain point when those DIY situations become more sustainable. If not, you guys will die out, the balcony will die out, someone else will come up, which is great, but it's just a kind of a loop, never-ending loop.
I will use this occasion also to advertise our next exhibition, which will feature the sister-in-law from the vitrine's owner.
Amazing. Do you know what she's going to show?
No, not really. Yeah, also I wanted to credit Itomi Rosa, which is another artist-run initiative in The Hague, for hosting lovely dinner we had and the discussion around.
Hopefully, if you'd like to have soup with me, I'm also happy to like have more soup with people and cook soup with people and have conversations through that and talk about our own labours and our own experiences of navigating this whole situations of trying to be paid, first of all being paid, but second of all getting paid fairly as an artist.
Bye!
Bye! Thanks for having me.